You're alive, Counselor.
All right, thank you. At 5:01, I will call the Valentine's Day Finance Committee meeting to order. And if we could get a roll call, please.
Certainly. Counselor Villarreal.
Present.
Counselor Cassett.
Here.
Counselor Lindell.
Here.
Counselor Rivera.
Here.
And Counselor Romero Worth.
I am here.
We have a
Oops,
quorum.
I just lost my agenda. Hold on. All right. Do we have changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes, Madam Chair.
All right. And if there are no changes from the committee, can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Counselor Cassett, second from Counselor Lindell. If we could get a roll call on approval of the agenda.
Yes. Counselor Villarreal.
Yes.
Counselor Cassett.
Yes.
Counselor Lindell.
Yes.
Counselor Rivera.
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes. And we have an agenda. From there, we'll go to approval of our consent agenda. Are there items the committee would like to discuss? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd like to pull item 8A.
8A.
And that's it.
Okay, that's the Vexus fiber. Just making sure our agendas are the same, yeah? Okay,
Yes, thank-
anybody else?
Move to approve.
Oh, Counselor Rivera is waving at me.
Sorry.
Sorry, Counselor. Just a quick question on item D.
On item D, that would be the affordable housing contract for HomeWise, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, so we have 8A and 8D, and we did have a motion. Counselor Lindell, you still want to make that motion
Correct. Move to approve
as amended?
as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Counselor Lindell, a second by Counselor Rivera, and can we take a roll call on approval of the consent agenda?
Yes. Counselor Villarreal.
Yes.
Counselor Cassett.
Yes. Yes.
Counselor Lindell.
Yes.
Counselor Rivera. Thank you,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera. Okay. And Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes. Next, we have the Finance Committee minutes from January 31st. Are there changes to those minutes? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Counselor Lindell, second from Counselor Cassett for approval of the January 31st Finance Committee minutes. If we could get a roll call, please.
Counselor Villarreal.
Yes.
Counselor Cassett.
Yes.
Counselor Lindell.
Yes.
Counselor Rivera.
Yes.
And Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Now we do not have an executive session. We'll go to presentations. We have an audit status update. Director McCoy, you can take it from here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we have the same format that we've had in the previous few weeks. We've broken up the entire workload that we have into 7 major categories. So we're going to walk you through the progress that has been made in the last week and give you an update on what is to come in the next week. So for assets is one of the largest of all of our categories. And this is 57% complete, and we are on track to finish in the next 2 weeks by the end of February. Last week, we did have a final review of all of the areas that were completed, and we are continuing this last week and this upcoming week, a review of our significant cash accounts, the 100, 700, and 100, 900 series. We will also continue to review some of our smaller receivable accounts this week, as well as continue the final review of completed areas. Progress on our capital assets, this jumped from 30% to 50%, and we're on track to finish this by the end of the week. The last week, our team reviewed and started testing a sample size of just shy of 300 transactions, which totaled close to 40 million. This next week, we will continue to test the sample size with the goal of completing this week. The progress on our deferred inflows and outflows. This is our net pension and other post-employment benefits, OPEB, as it's referred to. For our liabilities, again, two major areas that have where the review is continued. This has jumped from 10 to 15% for both deferred inflows and outflows, and we expect this to be completed by the end of this month as well. Our liabilities, this increased from 29% to 35%, and we're on track to complete this by the end of the month. Our review continues of our liabilities, including compensated absences and other long-term liabilities, our accounts payable, and other liabilities. This happened in the last week and will continue this week as well. This is another significant area for the city. A major area is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards for our single audit. This increased from 27% to 35%. This is definitely an all citywide effort as we have federal awards that impact multiple different departments. We are on track to complete this by the middle of March to hand over to our auditors for them to begin their review. We've continued to review last week our general ledger transactions, and the team continues to meet, like I mentioned, with all department staff affected to verify and test those transactions and compare those to the federal reports that were submitted to our cognizant agencies. We will continue to verify and test these transactions in the weeks to come. Both on fund balance and net position, as well as inter funds, those are all 100% completed. These are smaller areas of the complete total for all 7 categories that we're reviewing with you, but those have been completed. So that does show measured progress in the prior weeks. At this point in our January to March timeline, we're continuing the reconciliations and any correcting journal entries that we need. As I mentioned last week, we have heard back from our external auditor, CLA, and they will be able to start testing of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards mid-March. So that's good. We're already bumped up about 2 weeks from that March 31st deadline to have our auditors on site to begin that testing, with the major testing of our trial balance set to begin in April and continue throughout April, May, and June. So with that, Madam Chair, I will stand for questions.
Questions from the committee? I don't see anybody waving at me. So thank you, Director McCoy, for that update. Thank you for the work that's going into moving us forward. And from there, we will go to our consent agenda. Item 8A, an ordinance granting NTS Communications LLC, DBA Vexus Fiber, a non-exclusive franchise to operate a telecommunications network within the city of Santa Fe. The right to use city public rights of way to provide telecommunication services within the city and fixing the terms and conditions thereof. Councilwoman Villarreal, you pulled this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Terry Lease, for joining us. Just a couple of questions about the contract. So in it talks about a 2%, that we receive 2% of revenue from Vexus Fiber for access to our infrastructure. And I was just curious if this was the same for all the franchise companies, specifically telecom network companies that do business with the city. And I was curious if that was a standard percentage of revenue.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, I believe that is standard with all of them. This is my first franchise in my short tenure here, so I don't know if Mr. Martinez is on, but he sent me the template quote, and I was working from the template. I do believe it's the same across the board.
For some reason, I remember that there were other franchise fees that were a higher percentage of revenue, but I couldn't recall the name of which one. So maybe you could just find that out for me.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, I'll be happy to do that, and I'll get back with you by email or text as soon as possible.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And then the other question I had was, can any company apply for a non-exclusive franchise with the city to operate a telecom network?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, I believe they can. There's an application process, and that application comes to the city. We have the option to approve or not approve that application before we enter into a franchise agreement.
So is there criteria in that application that they have to meet before they're considered?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to, again, take a look at this and get back with you on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That's why I tried to reach you today. Sorry, it was late in the day, but if you could email me the information, that would be great. That's all I have in terms of questions for this item, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Terry, if you wouldn't mind sending that information to all the committee, that'd be great. And is there a motion on this item?
To move us along, I'll go ahead and move to approve.
Second.
Yes,
So we
with
have-
information, waiting for that information. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve from Councilwoman Villarreal and a second from Councilor Lindell. If we could get a roll call on this item, please.
Sure. Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
and Counselor O'Mara Worth.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. We are on to item 8D, request for review and approval of the allocation for the 2022 Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the attached contracts awarded in response to RFA 2201R for HomeWise, Los Canales Housing Development Affordability Project in the amount of $700,000. We do have Alexandra Ladd, the director of our Office of Affordable Housing here to answer questions, and Councilor Rivera, I believe you pulled this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Ladd, I just pulled this one because it was the first one, but the question, I guess, applies to all of them. And it's really, so the paper recently wrote that the median price of a home was well over $500,000, and we remain at 120% of AMI. So have incomes risen proportionately to prices of residences?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I'm sorry, were you asking whether incomes have not risen?
Have they increased at the same rate that really the price of homes have?
Thank you for the clarification. No, they have not. I think our market is also kind of reacting to a lot of different, perhaps unexpected pressures right now coming out of the pandemic. So it's hard, and people's incomes have also been affected by the pandemic. So we're sort of in a weird space. I think things will start to level out a little bit, I'm hoping. But no, there is no way that somebody earning a local wage can afford a median priced home right now.
So how does that disproportionate income to the price of homes affect, or does it affect these projects that are listed here tonight?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that's a great question, because really at the end of the day, it just requires more subsidies to close the gap between what somebody can afford and what the market rate housing prices are. It also, what we try to do with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, of course, is we're trying to support projects that aren't supported in the marketplace. So the HomeWise project is a conversion project, also adding a few new units. But for instance, that the conversion of rental housing to homeownership housing probably certainly wouldn't be as affordable without the subsidy that will be provided through the trust fund. And what it does for those people living there now is that many of them will be prioritized as home buyers for the homes they're living in now. And that's kind of one strategy for stabilizing housing prices over the long term is homeownership, because your mortgage never changes, the mortgage amount of your mortgage. So it's not as if when you're a renter, costs go up every year, most likely. So that's kind of one example. I think the other really great example of how government funds are so effective is the Paseo del Sol apartment project that the housing authority, the Civic Housing Authority, purchased because it was expiring. It was nearing the end of its affordability compliance period. So it would have converted to market rate. So because the trust funds were able to use the trust funds to support the conversion from the original ownership to a continued affordability compliance period under the housing authority.
All right. Do you happen to know what the average kind of subsidy has been over the last, 5 years? Is there an average amount?
Councilor Rivera, for homeownership, to help with homeownership? So that's a great question, because we're changing that right now. We originally, when I first took over this program in 2012, if we could provide a home buyer household with $20,000 of subsidy, that usually could make the difference. I mean, they're not buying mansions, of course, but in the market at the time, that could really be enough to get a household in homeownership. We raised it to 30,000, the cap, and now we're going all the way up to 80,000.
And that'll be, in your opinion, that'll be sufficient to get people into these units that we're talking about tonight, not just the HomeWise, but all of them?
It will go a huge way toward meeting that need. I think because there's no such thing as a universal homebuyer household. For some households, it is all the difference. For other households, they would need more, and some households don't need that much. So, the idea is that this will make the difference for the majority of households to be able to become homeowners in this market.
Okay, and are there any times where you go higher than that? Well, I guess, would there be any times where you go higher than 80,000?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, we will not, because we do write the limit into the contract along with language that requires proper underwriting for these loans so that the household families are not getting more than they need, because we want to be able to spread the resources across as many families as we can.
All right. Again, just general questions. Don't have support all of these. Just wanted to ask those specific questions. So I'll move for approval, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Rivera, second by Councilwoman Villarreal to approve this item. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
and Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes,
Thank you.
that item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Action items we don't have. Matters from staff. Director
Thank you.
McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to call the committee's attention to an email that was sent from our internal auditor, REDW. Her name is Caitlin Gutierrez. She sent this email on February 2nd. It's regarding the city's internal audit risk assessment. This process, the audit committee directed the internal audit staff at their meeting in December to conduct a risk assessment, an updated risk assessment. So as part of that effort, she has reached out to, on February 2nd, in an email, reached out to all of the members of the governing body to request a 45-minute meeting with her and her team to be able to interview each one of you about risks to the city as you view them. So I would encourage you, if you have not already done so, to reach out to Caitlin Gutierrez and schedule that opportunity. We look forward in the coming months for the risk assessment to be finalized and presented both to the audit committee as well as the finance committee. So I'll stand for questions on that item or anything else. Madam Chair, that's all for my update tonight.
Great. Any questions for Director McCoy on that item? Doesn't look that way. Matters from the committee. Matters from the chair. Our next meeting, Monday, February 28th. Enjoy your evening, everyone. Happy Valentine's